Hey everyone, welcome to Hanging with Uncle. I'm Gene and let's get started. There's been a lot of important developments lately, especially within the Department of Justice, and none of it is good. So let's just talk about the indictments they have on James Comey and Letitia James. Number one, Lindsay Halligan, the prosecutor that was illegally appointed to handle this case, is in a lot of trouble. But she's not the only one. So let's look into that, because how were those indictments obtained? Well, we know in the Comey case that the grand jury was not presented with all the facts and the evidence. As a matter of fact, they did a cut and paste job. So here's what happened. They filed 3 charges against him. The first charge was did not return a true bill, which means they chose not to indict. But they indicted on the second. So how did they get the third? Okay, so the first one was dismissed. The next 2, they got a true bill. And how were they obtained? Okay, and that's what the judge wants to find out, because there's a lot of discrepancies. So yesterday in court, Lindsay Halligan admitted to the judge that she did not present the second indictment case to the grand jury. You need, at least in this jurisdiction, 14 members of the grand jury to reach an indictment. And in the second indictment, only 2 grand jurors were presented with the affidavit or the facts. So that's not a true bill of indictment. And why? Well, because she's receiving her marching orders from the top attorneys in the DOJ, Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, who instructed her and Lemons, the other guy they shuffled up from North Carolina to sit by her, who has some criminal prosecutorial experience, who admitted to Judge Boasberg, or not Boasberg, that's another case, Nachmanoff, I think it is. But anyway, that they were told by Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche not to release the declination memo, which means prior to Lindsay Halligan getting this, the previous federal prosecutor declined to prosecute. That's why it's a declination memo. And they omitted that in the presentation to the grand jury. And Attorney Lemons admitted in court to the judge that Bondi and Blanche told him not to present the declination memo. And this is exculpatory evidence, which means it's evidence that would prove the innocence or lack of evidence against these charges against James Comey. And that is prosecutorial misconduct. But it doesn't just end there. Yes, the case will be dismissed. If I was a gambling man, I'd bet the house and your house that these charges would be dismissed. But what happens when you piss off a federal judge? Well, by refusing to fully disclose all materials through what's called discovery, you are violating the defendant's rights under the 5th and 6th Amendment of the Constitution. So long story short, let's just say, because this is kind of egregious, I would not be surprised to see Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche brought up on disciplinary charges and reported to their states in which they are licensed to practice law to be disbarred. So being disbarred in one state does not preclude you from practicing law in another state. You have to be disbarred in every state that you hold a law license. Okay, so that's one. But the second one now in this is where in the Abrigo Garcia case, right, where they were illegally sending people out of the country without due process And Garcia was ordered by Judge Boasberg to be returned to the United States. And Emil Bovy, who at the time was third in charge at the Department of Justice and now a federal judge, ordered them to just disregard the judge's order, basically telling him to fuck off. And that is what the previous attorney who got fired, who was heading up the Immigration Department and Department of Justice, Ruveni, I think his name is, testified to that. So now we are looking at possibly a federal judge being disciplined and possibly being brought up on disbarment charges. So the Department of Justice, thinking that they can operate on their own outside the law, they don't have to listen to anybody. They're going to own the libs, or the justice, or the judges in this case, is not going to end well. Remember, the Justice Department is a co-equal branch of government. They don't listen to the executive branch. They don't take their marching orders from the executive branch. They are an equal branch of government, and when they make a ruling, it is to be followed. And if you don't like it, that's why they have appeals processes in the court. You don't just dismiss charges or dismiss the judge's rulings and tell him to fuck off if you don't like what he has to say. All right, so I think the Department of Justice is in a world of hurt. And this is just my prediction. I've heard nothing from this other than the facts that I've just presented. But the disbarment and disciplinary actions are something that I think are totally within the realm of possibility. I would love to know what your thoughts are. Please leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like button, and also the notification bell so you never miss when new content comes out. So thank you for hanging with Uncle. I'm Gene, and remember, be kind to one another and treat each other the way you want to be treated. I know if I was a criminal defendant and there was exculpatory evidence that could clear my name, I would want that. And more importantly, if you were a criminal defendant and there were exculpatory evidence, I would want you